Hello, my name is Steve, or as you can call me, General Chaos, and I have a after-action report with our first session, and I'm playing with AaronPlays. I'm playing Pacific, as you can see here. I got Vassal going, and I got Pacific War going, the Malaya Campaign, and so AaronPlays is the allied player, and me, Steve, General Chaos, is playing the Japanese. So I thought I'd just take a run through the vassal log here and kind of give some audio as it's running through the steps. So as you can see here with the Malaya campaign, my objective is to clear all the allied units off Malaya. But there is a little bit of kind of a setup. Well, not setup, but just when you initially start, you kind of gotta have to get stuff in position. So currently my objective is to get stuff way in the east or down the map up into the battle area. So if you're looking in the upper left, you can see the text scrolling. So me and Aaron have already done the weather roll, which turned out clear. We did our strategic levels. But actually the strategic levels have very little meaning in the first operation because it's all preset per the scenario start. So we're kind of going through all the steps. We got our command points. We did the isolations, strategic transport, but we really didn't do any of these reinforcements, replacements, stuff like that. So we actually get to the operational player determination, which again is predetermined. It's me, Japan. So I start doing my activations. So right now I'm currently on my hidden screen forming up my task forces in down the map, or which is east, because actually north is to the right. So So it looks like my activations are done, and now if you look at the center at the operational display, we're kind of talking about the revealed operation intelligence, which turns out to be surprise, which again is preset. So if you look in the far right, setting up the day tracker. So there's 3 op-end markers which are secret to the allied player. So I'm putting down the 14-day, the 21-day, and the 28-day. But he, as the allied player, doesn't know how long the operation is going to be. So looking through the chat box in the upper left, you can see I did my ground. I did my air. This is kind of like the pre-set up moves, but there's really nothing. So I get to the naval. And with the naval, we originally start searching. So I do some searching in the Malaya area, but it looks like I didn't have any success. But then I start the task force movement. So it's basically a 1 hex move, then you do searching, 1 hex move, and then searching. So I keep the process of trying to keep my searches, because I'm trying to find where his air units are. That's kind of the most important as we're advancing the task forces. And as you can see in the center too, on the naval movement track, that's also moving in conjunction with the actual movement of the task forces. So now on the Malaya screen, you can actually see I'm starting to get some success with my rolls. That's with the little red dot in the upper left corner of the force marker. So I think I'm getting a little intelligence, and I think if I remember right, I'm pretty much finding out that there's no air at any of these bases, because I think each one of these forces, the Allied forces, has a base under it. So that's why I'm searching each one, trying to find out where his air, he has 3 to 4 air units, so that's what I'm trying to find out. But I think I found out that there's really none, at least so far. So I'm continuing to move. As you can see in the South China Sea, those task forces are moving up. And again, if you look at the naval movement track just above the South China Sea map, each time that marker goes into a gray box, it moves the day tracker. So that's why currently, as you can see, we're in day 2, over way on the right. As you can see, we just hit box 7, which is the 3rd gray, so now we're at day 3. Okay, so now we're starting to get off the South China Sea map, and as you'll see, I'll pop it up. So now we're in the Malaya area there, coming up, making our way towards Singapore, towards Malaya with the task forces. And one thing too with these searches in the contact phase, it's all daytime searches, so you don't worry about the lighting. It's all considered day. And looking at the text, you can see in the upper left that I personally stopped the contact phase because I'm pretty much ready to start invading. So with that, it goes to the reaction player. So it's now Aaron's turn to activate stuff, using CPs to activate individual units. If they're air or ground, they just stay in their force marker. But if he's doing some naval, which of course, if everybody knows, in the early war, Prince of Wales and Repulse were in Singapore, so he does have some naval units, and I think that's what he's going to do here. He's going to be forming up a task force at Force 16 in Singapore. There it goes. So I can only assume that's the battleship and battle cruiser. So now it's the reaction player contact phase, but that skipped since it's a surprise. So we actually start going into the first battle cycle. And when you get into the first battle cycle, the first thing you do is lighting. So that's what we're determining here. And I kind of had a decision here. I can personally pick which lighting I want, but I generally like to save my option for when combat net starts actually occurring. So I let it go to a roll. Might not have been the best idea, but I let it go to a roll, and of course my rolling wasn't the best, and it went to night, which is fine for the invasion, but for air purposes, it might have been better if it would have been at daytime. So we're getting into the advantage player, which is me, because again, I win that again due to surprise. So I start doing my first hex move. I probably did some searching but failed, but then now I do my second hex move. And then after naval, in the advantage move phase, we go to ground, and that's when I disembark my units off the task force and actually put a force on Malaya. So then after that is the air mission phase, but it's night, so we skip that since it's nighttime. We're not in the same hex with anybody naval-wise, so there's no naval combat. There's no bombardment. And actually with the bombardment, I probably should have moved TF1 actually into his force 2 to bombard, but I thought this was actually a better position for me. So now we get to the demolition phase, and now this is Aaron. He's kind of worried about the Japanese capturing the air bases, which, yes, that is important. So he's starting to roll. Each of his forces are rolling. He's getting a bunch of fails, but he is successful at Force 3 there. And he's actually deleting the base because he demoed it. And I think that's the only one he's successful at. So now we get to the ground combat phase, and There actually is no ground combat because with me landing in an open hex, there's no combat. But then we do, which we think per the rules, is to put the OSB down. So that's what I'm doing there. Then we get into some unaffected, there's airfield repair, which nothing happens, rallying, nothing. But then we get to the disadvantage move phase, which is the Allies and Aaron's move. So he decides to do naval first. He does the little searches. But again, these are nighttime searches now. So it's really hard to... But he does get a successful roll there. So even though it was night, I think he needed a low roll and he got a 2. So he finds out that there's like 4 naval units. Doesn't know what type in that, but... and then with his 2 moves, he moves his Task Force 1 adjacent to mine. And he does no ground movement. Then there's no air missions. And then we get to the joint air activation and then we're done.